it was scary. I'm just like, all right, just something move, please move. My body started tingling back, like kind of when your leg falls asleep, and it starts to shake, and it feels like it feels awkward. It doesn't feel right, but it feels better because it's like I'm feeling something. Yeah, exactly. So I feel something. So as I sit up, I realize my arm's not coming for the ride.
Back in the game, it's evident. I step in the room, I'm an elephant. Run up a bag, I ran up a bag. I gotta go count on some presidents. I'm back out the dirt, the sediment. Back with a baddie, she elegant. I'm back from the dead, I'm back from the dead. Bitch, they call me the Revenant.
I've been trying to forget, but you won't let me. Something in my brain wants you. I've been thinking of myself, asking for help, but nothing seems to work on you. Yeah. You always make me feel like, oh yeah. You never hear my thoughts, oh yeah.
We're here.
We're here.
We in Miami?
Yes.
Or you stay here all the time?
Yeah, for the most part. Sometimes I go up to New Jersey, especially during the summer months when it's warm. Usually come down here for the winters and stuff.
You're from Jersey.
I'm from Jersey, yeah. That's where all my family is.
You spend time in Atlanta still?
I do. Yeah, I go out to Atlanta every now and then.
That's where your girl's from, or?
Yeah, my girl's from Atlanta.
Okay, so
I'm out there every now and then.
Family.
Yeah.
Family. Well, I mean, okay, so we met at the Dolphins Business Combine.
Yeah.
1, 2, was it 3 or 4 years ago? Because we suffered 2 years of COVID.
I would say 4 or 5, because it was 2017 was my first one, and 2018 was the one we was on the same team.
Right. So that's what I'm getting to here.
Yeah.
So we meet. That's the day we meet.
Y'all met before you were his coach?
No, we were both coaches.
Okay.
Because Caleb Thornhill, player engagement over at the Miami Dolphins. We're both business coaches. So you were calling Caleb from the parking lot somewhere, talking about something you were passionate about.
Yeah.
Walk me through that.
Yeah. So we had like a little call, like coaches call to talk about what we were gonna do for the speed build, and they were like, if you have any ideas and stuff for it, spitball it. And I had just came back from an outpatient therapy spot where we stayed for like a month or so, and there was a lot of ex-football players. It was for head injuries, and I realized that a lot of people didn't really have anybody to talk to. They didn't really have like a way to like vent. We had like group therapy sessions, and we'll have like, oh yeah, I went through this in practice, and I still conditioned by that now. And they were like, oh damn, yeah, I felt that way too. I thought it was just me, and it kind of like rang a light in my head that we need to have a platform or something where people could talk about things that they don't think they could talk about, because everybody deals with it. It's just a matter of how much they reveal it to others.
So let's back up a little bit. Who's on the squad? It's me, you, Ben Moss. Shout out Ben Moss, Compass, Miami Realty down here.
Yep. Xavier Howard.
Durham Smythe, Luke Falk,
Vince
VT.
Vince Taylor.
Big VT.
Yeah.
I miss him.
And David Fales.
Yep.
Yeah. Had an all-star team, man.
We had that's why we won.
Squad.
That's why we won. Took the belt home.
All-star squad.
And at that point, Alex was undefeated too in the speed builds too. So we came in with a little rigged situation. We kind of knew we was gonna win because we had Alex.
We had the ringer, man.
We had the ringer,
And we were pitching to actual sharks, Shark Tank sharks, because Matt Higgins was there.
Yeah.
We were pitching to. So let's back this up a little bit so people know what the heck we're talking about.
Yeah.
So annually, the Miami Dolphins, who are ahead of the curve as far as taking care of their players outside of the game, outside of ball, they are holding annual events every single year to better their players, especially in business. So it's like week-long situation. Mm-hmm. You go to different environments. I know this last year they went to House of Athlete in Weston. They went in the previous years, gone to like New York City, Facebook, Google's, big time.
Watch the Hudson Yards be built.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's Stephen Ross's thing. So that's baked in from the Dolphins there. So they've had some really diverse experience. And then we come in and we do these activation events. We call it speed build, where people where everyone's broken up into teams. All the players that are attending the event are broken up into teams, and they receive or dream up a business concept, and we've got to build a business in 3 hours, right? That's put on by Black Ops. So after the 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever the time span is that we built this company from literally from scratch, right? Surveying passions, or there's prompts or whatever. We go and pitch it in front of a panel of esteemed judges, right? So we pitched to Tom Garfinkel was the CEO, right?
Yeah.
Of the Dolphins. Matt Higgins.
Yeah.
There was a Hall of Famer there that we pitched to.
It wasn't
Taylor, right?
Jason Taylor.
Jason Taylor was there. And there was man, her name escapes me. She was Goldman. Man, we can come back to that.
Yeah.
But we pitched Spotlight. That's what we dreamed up.
We're each going to say a few words up here, but at this time I'd like to announce the winner to start. But first, all you guys did a great job, really. So let's give them all a round of applause. I was particularly impressed with just how you answered the questions, to be honest. I think, we have some real questions, put you on the spot a little bit, and I think you did a great job. Everybody did a great job of presenting. There's obviously a lot of thought, a lot of time went into this, and everybody did a great job answering questions, thinking through the business issues, thinking through, how these could be real businesses. We had a unanimous winner, and that winner was Spotlight.
Dig into Spotlight a little bit more. Like, I want to hear the perspective, and then after you know what? Let's get into where you come from.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit about your story.
All right. Well, I'm from New Jersey. I grew up with a single mother. My father left when I was 2. He was a bit abusive, and that really affected me. He passed away when I was 5. I got into football really early. It was one of those things that as soon as I started, it just clicked. I just loved it. It just reminded me like tag. The rules were simple. Like, you didn't have to learn many skills. It was just see ball, get the ball, run over there, So I kind of like maybe 10, 11, I was like locked in with football. So went to high school, really wanted to go and be one of the big players, go to the big schools, win the 1A schools and win national championships. I remember I wrote on my wall, like all my stats from my sophomore year to my senior year, like 200 tackles, 3 picks, All-American, It didn't work out that way, obviously. I ended up going to Fordham University, which was my only scholarship offer, and need-based scholarship too, so it wasn't even like a just regular full scholarship. It was just because I was able to qualify for the scholarship, I was able to get it. So went through there. It was kind of trials and tribulation. It was a lot. The coaching staff really wasn't supportive and really helped out in skill development. It was just, let's get the best athletes and just go be better than everybody, So I felt like I went through a bunch of positions. Came in as linebacker, played safety, played corner, played safety again. Ended up on the D-line at one point, It's just like literally trying anything to throw me out there. And I really got to the point where my dream was always to go to the NFL. I didn't really think it was going to happen. But I ended up running a 40 for the scouts, ended up going really well. And then I ended up going into the draft, and I was like late draft pick, like 5th to 7th round undrafted kind of situation. What was tough about that year that it was a lockout. So it was kind of those situation where if you got drafted, you on your team, you know what you're doing. But if you don't get drafted, then you got to wait till the lockout ends to figure out where you're going to go. And then you kind of behind the curve, and it's going to be tough to be able to, make a team. So lo and behold, went into the draft, didn't get drafted. So I had to wait a really long time to go figure out where I was going to be. It was usually we start up in May with like OTAs and everything like that. The lockout didn't end until July 27th, something crazy late. So pretty much right before training camp. So ended up going out there. Thankfully, I made the team, played there for a couple years. It didn't end up working out. Went to Detroit for 2 years. That's where I really got my career on, especially as a defensive player. I started making more plays. I started showing I could be a starter in this league. Played 2 years there, and then that's when the Dolphins offered me a contract to be a starter, and kind of kick off my career as a defensive player. I came in as a special teams guy because I was a small school and drafted person, so I was trying to get in where I fit in, just whatever I could do to make the team. Then now I have the time where I get the opportunity to take control and be a starter. So we go through the year. We start off a little rocky and like 1-4, something terrible. They start making changes, and eventually something just clicked in me that I had to like kind of step up. We ended up going on a run, won 7-8 straight games, and in the game that was going to clinch the playoffs for us, about the third quarter, we playing the Bills. Literally, if they win, they're in. If we win, we're in. So it's one competitive environment. We're in Buffalo, super cold. They're driving down the field, and I'm going to make a tackle. The tight end catches the ball, and I'm trying to stop him from getting in the end zone. I go to try to make a tackle. I make contact on my right shoulder. As I make contact, my teammate hits me in my head. So it was kind of a head going left, my shoulder going down.
Do you know who that was? You don't know who, or you know who it was?
I know who it was.
Okay.
But I ended up falling. I was paralyzed, just on the ground, like couldn't move at all. Like then I'm sitting there. It was scary. I'm just like, all right, just something move, please move. My body started tingling back, like kind of when your leg falls asleep, and it starts to shake, and it feels like it feels awkward. It doesn't feel right, but it feels better because it's like I'm feeling something.
I don't feel nothing anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel something. So as I sit up, I realize my arm's not coming for the ride, and it's just like laying flat. Kind of when you sit down, your lats and your shoulders kind of protrude up, I guess. When I was looking at my arm, it was just like everything was super flat, and I knew it was something wrong. And came out the game. They helped me walk off the field, and none of the trainers really knew what was going on. They didn't really know what the injury was. And it wasn't until like a month later or so that I got to see a doctor that specialized in this injury. And he told me that my right arm was paralyzed. I severed my C5 and C6 from my spine. And my career was over, and I had to have surgery to be able to have any use of my arm again.
Wait, so in your spine, that's the
brachial plexus.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that has control over your shoulder and your arm?
My arm,
all
my
movement.
Fingers, elbow, bicep muscles, and all that stuff. Yeah.
And so that's just typically like if I dive into, shallow water or something, like that's what I risk potentially happening to me, or like a broken neck or something, right?
Oftentimes they say this injury comes with motorcycle accidents. That's what happens the most.
So the doctor tells you this, what's going through your mind?
It was so many thoughts going through my mind because my main mindset was, man, we just made the playoffs with the Dolphins, first time since 2008. Man, we got momentum. We moving. Like, all our teammates is young. I'm ready to get back on the field. I'm hoping that they could say I could play for these playoffs, So, like, when he told me my career was over, it was hard for me even to fathom that. I couldn't even fathom my career's over. I just started. I just started being successful. I just started doing what I wanted to, being like proving my name in this league, and now it's all over before I even get the chance. So I honestly I couldn't even respond. I went into it myself. Just I couldn't even process it. It was too much, honestly.
So, like, you go home, right? Because they send you home eventually, and you're not thinking about are you thinking about the recovery? Are you like, I cannot imagine that, right?
Yeah.
Your whole life, you've been working for this moment. You're working for that game. You're working for that moment of getting to the playoffs, making your run, winning a bowl. And now you're being told that you're not even going to play a game again.
Yeah.
Mentally, what does that do to you?
I mean, it was tough hearing that news, but it was probably more tough to deal with the fact that I knew I couldn't play. Like, my arm is still recovering. This happened in 2016, Christmas Eve. And, the thing that made it so hard was, okay, if I couldn't play football, I could just do other stuff. I could play video games. I could learn an instrument. But my whole right arm wasn't working.
Literally,
So
one arm now.
yeah, so it's like not only did I just lose my passion, I lost most of the things I like to do because
You
I
can't
like
write.
doing
You can't write your name.
Yeah, most of the things I like to do is physical. I like doing things that's like basketball, football,
Right.
typing even. Maybe holding the camera or something. I couldn't do anything at all. So it was just like it was one of those moments I just felt helpless. In all honesty,
And what year this happens?
I got injured December 24th, 2016. So all of it was pretty much 2017.
And now we're sitting here midway through 2022. What has that journey been like? Mentally, physically, emotionally, what has that journey been like for you?
I mean, sitting from this vantage point, I can honestly say that it's been beautiful.
It's crazy.
It's been a lot, but I knew that this wasn't the end. I knew that it was a part of my journey. I've always known that I wasn't destined to play football. I think that I've always known that I was like capable of doing more, and that football was a stepping stone. And I think that that's what I get to see now, was that football got me to this point, to me and you guys, me and a lot of my friends. It got me to even being able to invest in myself, take opportunity and think about what I want to do, so it helped me deal with myself, deal with my emotions. Before then, I really wasn't somebody that talked about how I felt. I would just keep powering through everything, like that made me really sit down and stop and understand my mindset and understand how other people think, so regardless of how tough it was, how hard it was, from this vantage point, from as much healing as I've done, I feel like it was one of the more valuable things I went through.
Yeah, I know. We come from similar communities.
Yeah.
And being able to talk about your mental, how you're feeling as Black men is tough.
Yeah.
It's not really accepted.
Yeah.
And for you being an athlete, this person is held to this high standard. And even in athletics, prior to the last few years, it hadn't been publicly accepted, being able to, express how you feel.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling well, as an athlete, Kyrie Irving, for example.
Yeah.
But, for you being in that situation, in 2016, 17, like, what was that time frame for you to kind of be able to, let the world know how you were feeling, or let people know how you were feeling, because you had an injury that you couldn't come back and play from, just that realization that, hey, I can't play football anymore.
Yeah.
What was that process for you? How did you deal with that?
Yeah. I mean, it was really tough at first because I wrapped up a lot of my identity in being a football player and, succeeding in that dream. So, I felt shame. I felt like I wasn't me anymore. Like the thing that brought value to the world wasn't there, so it was really tough for me to kind of get my mindset around me being a valuable person without having to play football.
Right.
Like my mindset was just really like, what's my worth? Like all I know is football. I got to start on something brand new if I'm gonna do something new. So it was tough, like especially with like self-esteem wise. I didn't really feel like proud of myself. I didn't feel accomplished.
For you?
Very dark.
Yeah,
really dark time. I started going to therapy maybe like 6 months or so after my injury.
So no therapy before.
Yeah. No, none at all. So I started going to, and it's psychotherapy, not even physical therapy.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I started going to therapy around 6 months after my injury. And that was really the first time I was able to talk about it. I would say little stuff, but,
be honest about it.
Fully candid, opposed to talking to the people that love you and you trying to tell them the best thing to make them feel better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now that we understand a little bit of the journey that you went through in, let's say, the first chapter of your career, what do you okay, so you go through your process post football, you're coping. What does that translate into? What's the next chapter look like? What have you been doing for the years since your last game?
Well, I think one of the things that I felt was important to do was kind of allow people to know that they can talk about the things that they could talk about. I think that's something that I've dealt with, especially before the injury, was that I felt like, I can't tell people that. I got to uphold the image of being a strong man. I got to be this type of person. I got to be that. But I wanted everybody to know that we all deal with the same things. I just don't think that often certain people don't speak about it, or some people are too proud to even say that they're going through it. But I think that I want to be an advocate for letting every human know that there's X amount of emotions and X amount of feelings, and 100% of people have those.
Yeah.
You know, and I want you to not feel shame in having those things. I want you to be able to talk it out. Because one thing I learned, when you speak about something that's bothering you, you feel better.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds like very basic, elementary, but I used to not speak about it. I used to just, oh yeah, well, I'm dealing with this. I'm just going to keep it in my head.
Yeah.
Then once I went to therapy, you know, I obviously learned the different things. I started talking about it, and the problem would be away in 2 hours, 3 hours, when same thing would hold me over for like 3-4 days, you know? So I want to be able to be an advocate for people to be able to speak about the things that they're dealing with and be able to know that you're not held prisoner by those feelings, that you can overcome them.
Got you.
So, I mean, we gave you a little bit of the lowdown of, you know, why we started the show. And to have somebody like yourself with a story as powerful as yours, and someone who's, you know, you're just beginning to accomplish your life's greatest accomplishments, right? And, you know, I've had the privilege of, you know, being able to cheer you on from the sidelines over the past couple of years. You know, we started the show to not only understand the journey that you've gone through to get to this point, but to also break down the barriers and show other athletes that are out there that, you know, there's a life beyond sports. And you know better than anyone that you don't know when your last game is going to be. Yeah. You don't know when that last contract is going to be cut. You don't know when the last stroke on that check is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we wanted to create a platform for athletes to discuss the ventures that they've launched, post their playing career, or during their career, right? We talk about this all the time. If you're starting the transition after your career, you're too late.
Yeah.
Too late.
Right? Do you agree with that?
100%, because I did, you know?
So talk to me a little bit about that, because I want to understand not only your perspective there, but also some of the projects and companies that you've launched, because I know that you've not only impacted the lives of the people around you, but you've turned those into profitable opportunities, and showing the rest of the guys in the league, girls in you know, their respective sports, even down to NCAA athletes that, you know, didn't make it to the highest level. They fell just short. Yeah. You know what that life beyond sports looks like.
Well, you know, while I was playing, I didn't really give too much thought into what I was going to do afterwards. You know, part of it was because throughout my career, I was kind of trying to prove myself at the same time. So my mindset was, I'm going to go all in on this. But when it was over, especially how it ended, I felt I was behind the 8 ball. But thankfully, like, stars aligning, Caleb starts the business combine where I get to meet you guys to really help me go and push my next career forward. And, you know, from there, I've started a podcast with my friend called Film Study Podcast, where we're going to essentially talk about, we use books, like self-help books, different like things that, for instance, we use Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules for Life, Jordan Peterson. And we kind of take these topics from these books and just build our conversations around our life experiences to talk about these topics that maybe it's a little bit too taboo. Maybe it's about fear. Maybe it's about posture. Maybe it's about confidence, you know? Right. And I want to start that conversation around that so people can remember that's a lot of the important parts of your journey. Obviously, if you're in finance is going to be important. Mm-hmm. If you're in tech, you know, understanding the technology is going to be important. But also having confidence, you know, being able to deal with fear, being able to deal with anxiety, being able to deal with risk. And I want to be able to talk about these things, these principles that will help you go get to the next level. And no matter what you apply it to, it'll be something that it'll make it a better situation.
There's so many parallels with entrepreneurship, being a creative, and sports. You know, I'm a former athlete myself.
Yeah.
And my coach in high school used to so eloquently break down the game into life. You know what I mean? And like, being on this side of things now as an entrepreneur, I pull so much from sports. Perseverance, confidence, as you speak of, like that's so important on this journey of entrepreneurship, because it's a journey, like a football season is a journey.
Exactly.
Each game is a step in that ladder to the ultimate achievement. And that's the same way in entrepreneurship. And I feel like you were kind of thrusted a little fast into that journey, being, having a career-ending injury, and you even said it yourself. It was, you wouldn't say it during the time, but now looking back, like that was almost like the catapult moment, or the snowball moment. It kind of sped up things for you on a personal and a professional level. And it's just so cool to hear, because I know you. It's cool to hear the growth from the first time I met you to now. I met you pre-launch of Film Study. And just to see it come to fruition, because you talked about it then, but to see you actually put the steps in play to make it a thing and a profitable business is amazing to see. And I think for other athletes watching this and listening in on this, it's valuable lessons in just doing, being uncomfortable, so I want to applaud you for that.
Appreciate you,
for sure.
And definitely, it was a lot of things to be afraid of because you jumping out of new territory, but sometimes you just gotta have that faith, that keep
confidence.
Moving. That confidence that it'll work out just because you want it to.
Right.
So your story is powerful. We want to understand how this podcast came to be. Like, where do you start? Because if I'm in the locker room, if I'm just at home and I wanna launch something new, a new business, I need to know, where do I start? Is it a Google search? Is it a homie? Did you go through training? Did you go through school? How did this become a reality? And like, where, if I'm launching a new show, a new podcast, do I start?
New community.
And where, a new community. That's what you're really building here, is a community, right? The podcast is an appendage to that. So, and I need to know how I'm starting this if I'm turning around and doing this today.
Okay. Well, I learned a lot of the education from the business combine. It was very similar to Shark Tank, in the sense of pitching ideas, being able to hear the investors say what's wrong with the idea, what do you need to fix with it. But as it comes to idea generation, I think the first place I went was, what am I doing? What do I enjoy to do? At that point, I was reading a lot of books. I was in a point of just discovery, trying to understand life, trying to understand myself. And my friend that I started a podcast with, he was also into reading a lot of books. So we decided that, let's start a podcast talking about these topics, because we will have like conversations, whether it would be like me going to his house, him coming to mine, us going on a road trip. And it felt like conversations that really weren't had out in the podcast space or just like in general. So, we just started with something that we felt was something we love to do, but kind of new in the sense of not many people were discussing these type of things.
Right. So you found a problem.
Yeah.
And Film Study became the solution to the problem.
Yeah, it was a problem, but it was also just like, even if people were doing this already, we probably would have did it too, just because those conversations were just like valuable. I felt like we would read the book, we'll share things from our own lives, what we're going through, entrepreneurial journeys, and it would help us just like by having these conversations and having these principles to draw back on. So we was like, you know what, we should record these conversations and try to find other people that are like us.
So going into it, did you have like a target audience that you were creating this content for? Was it for an athlete? Was it for an entrepreneur? Was it for, was it niche? Was it specific?
Yeah, I would say it was for entrepreneurs, beginning entrepreneurs, and also ex-athletes. Both of us played football, or we met in college. He had a little stint with the Titans for a little bit. But it was ex-athletes kind of transitional stage and trying to think about those things, like you said, you take from football, like perseverance and those type of things, and how do you apply it to your real world?
Got you.
So you create a community now for entrepreneurs, and you're helping them grow. I would like to think that we're also contributing to that with what we've got going on here.
For sure.
What makes you different from any other podcast? Like, what sets you apart, and where does that community like really latch on to?
I think that the thing that sets us apart is the ability to draw from our own real life situations. You know, not being afraid to be the person in front telling you this is what I had to learn the hard way. You know, I think that the fact that we use examples from real life and real world examples, and we don't go and say this person's doing this wrong. We talk about this is where I fell short, and this is where it could have helped me, or I talk about my successes as well. I think the idea is just transparency and being able to own up to all parts of life, good or bad, indifferent. That makes us separate just because we've always been willing to be able to talk about those things. And, you know, you often don't hear people be able to come out and discuss these things that they might not feel too great about.
You've got film study where you're supporting entrepreneurs. You have a very vast history in the mental health space as a mental health champion. Is film study the only thing that's going on?
No, I definitely have a couple things that I'm doing. Real estate, I have a couple properties, you know, a couple doors that I'm working on expanding as well. A couple people I'm working with that. I own a gym as well in New York City, a personal trainers gym where the trainers rent out the space and bring their clients there, opposed to the people just coming and getting a membership to the gym. And you know, I'm working on a production company when it comes to working behind the scenes with the cameras, the podcast equipment, studio. You know, so I'm really interested in the creation process and building shows and producing things and stuff like that. So that's something I've been working on a lot.
Where do you gain these business muscles from? How did you level up to the point where you just rattled off like 4 or 5 different ventures?
All different. Yeah.
Diversified portfolio. Where is it? Mentorship? Is it you're just going out and you're failing and you're succeeding and you just learn from, you know, past experiences? Like, how are you going about all of these different ventures? Do you have a team behind you? Like, where's that coming from?
You know, I'm working with a couple people, nothing like too crazy, but a lot of it is just things that I'm actually interested in, things that I genuinely want to see through. You know, like not something that I think will be lucrative. Like I don't want to jump at something that's just gonna make money. I wanted to do something that I actually care about. You know, so real estate, I've always cared about places. You know, like from a kid, I used to like admire Diddy because Diddy didn't have to travel with luggage. Every place he was going, he had his own house and his own clothes. So like I kind of always had that kind of mindset of being able to touch different parts of the map and do things like that. So that's brought me to real estate. Fitness, that was something that I started through football, and I seen how much more important it was after I was done playing,
Right.
and how much it affected my mental when it came to working out. Because you know, obviously when you're playing the sport, it's easy to work out because you have to. But when you don't have to work out, you kind of don't want to. But when I wasn't working out, my mindset was so much darker and more negative, and I wasn't thinking I was able to do things. As soon as I start moving around, breathing hard, I just feel more optimistic about life. And it was something I realized that's going to be something important the rest of my life. I know that fitness is going to be a part of my life no matter what. And then the production thing, I've been into movies and all these things since I was young, since I was a kid, and movies, television shows, music, everything. But it was kind of one of those things that I never gave myself permission to do. It was like, oh, I'm a football player. I'm not going to do these things. So, you know, I'm kind of trying to give myself permission to build a production company, start doing things more creative, and, you know, go out in something that I haven't necessarily had much experience in, but something that interests me a lot.
You know, it's so crazy. Like you're doing, you know, you just named 4 different things that you're doing. For most athletes, I think that's the hardest part. Yeah. You know, having that confidence to do, you know, and you know, have to go out here and build the next Amazon, the next Walmart. You know, it's something amazing about being mean and lean and being able to start something that can be put into motion tomorrow. Yeah. You know, I feel like that's an amazing piece of the speed bills. I think the speed bills were big for you, you know, because speed bills give you the confidence that because you got to launch a business in 3 hours.
Yeah.
And it's just something about those muscles that you build by building something, launching it, pitching it, that builds confidence in yourself that, hey, I can go do this.
Yeah.
And for you, there's going to be things you build and that might not be as successful as you thought it was, and you got to make a pivot. But that's just part of being an entrepreneur. It's part of being a person who's passionate about this space.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that now your passion is kind of transitioned from ball to, your passions and building upon those passions in the form of businesses, which is beautiful to see. Yeah.
Appreciate you, man. Yeah. I would say the main thing is that I've just learned to enjoy the journey, because like, especially going to the NFL, being at that top level or something, you kind of want to be the best immediately afterwards, because you're just the best at something. But it took a long time for me to just change my process to let me just enjoy the journey. I'm going to be an amateur at things until I'm not, however long that takes. I don't know how long it's going to take. But as long as I enjoy it every single day, it's giving me more opportunity to come the next day. As long as it's enjoyable today, I'll be like, okay, I'll come to this tomorrow, So obviously there's going to be hard points and everything like that. But I think when it comes straight down to it, as long as you can take the step forward towards it, it helps out a lot.
And you're just kind of segueing into, one of my last questions here, which is like, maybe that's your answer. What advice would you give to guys that are in the league, guys that are out of the league, that are trying to get back into the league, active, inactive, injured, fighting for their life, or the most paid player in the league? Like, what advice do you give these guys and girls to take that next step beyond ball?
I would say take your interest serious. I think that throughout history, it was like certain jobs that people thought they had to have. So you whether be an athlete, entertainer, or you work in service industry. But, today people make millions of dollars playing video games, every day. If you just like being behind the camera, you can make a living off of that, So I want to say that whatever any athlete, whatever you're interested in, take it serious and kind of try to see it through a little bit, because there's a lot more opportunities than we think.
And where do they start? I need to know, where is it? A group of people that they go to talk to? Is it thought sharing? Where do you have to start? Something like super actionable that I can do today, an email I can send, a text message I can send, somewhere to show up, something to sign up for. What do I do to get started?
That's a good question. I would say YouTube, maybe going on something and looking at somebody doing something that you would like to do, and you could reach out to different people as well. Your player personnel on your team, if you're in the NFL, obviously that's going to be somebody that helps you out a lot. But, that was one of the tougher things for me, honestly, figuring out where to start, like coming from scratch, like I was blessed to be able to have the business combine and everything behind that kind of catapulted everything towards where I wanted to be. But, I would just go try to find people that are doing the things you like, and contacting them, talking to them, and go and find people in your local area maybe doing things that you like.
It's crazy. His answer just now was perfect. You might not think it's perfect, but it's perfect in that it's no one's gonna tell you what you need to do.
Yeah.
I think athletes wait on people to kind of direct them to what they need to do, but it takes self-action to be able to accomplish things. It takes doing it.
And that's their whole life, though.
Right.
They've had a coach. They've had a nutritionist. They've had a strength trainer. They've had a position coach.
Yeah.
They've had a head coach. They had a D-line coordinator. They had an O-line like, they've had someone next to them their entire life, helping them. They've executed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why that question to me is so important. Like, where do I start?
Yeah.
Because I went to school for biology. And I started crushing in business because I was just out in the trenches.
Yeah.
Like, I was sticking my neck out in the business college, asking professors to, hey, will you review this business plan that I put together? And then I network and I find some amazing mentors and I find a support system and a community. And then I just failed,
Yeah.
got back up again. And I think that's important to note, right? Like,
Yeah.
you ain't gonna strike $1 million on your first gig. Like, and you know this, you've been working creatively recently, right?
Yeah.
It's like the creative projects that you've done 6 months ago compared to today.
Yeah.
What's the difference between those,
Huge.
right?
Yeah.
The first one was what compared to now?
Trash.
Trash, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And to see that type of maturity, the difference in perspective, I think is important, right? And that's why we started the show, because we wanted to be a resource for those people. I've opened up my Rolodex to, plenty of different guys and girls, just trying to help them, connect them to the right person to take one more step forward.
Yeah.
And then you never know where that's going to go.
Yeah.
But you have to start. And if you don't start, if you don't send that DM, if you don't send that email, you don't know how to send a cold email.
Yeah.
Where's my camera? I will personally allow anybody that hits me on my DMs, I'll send them a template for my emails, like cold emails. This is cold emailing 101. Like, I have made it my life's mission to help athletes take that next step into business because it's personal to me. Yeah. That process is personal. I know what it feels like to go cold turkey into something new. So I feel like we're in a pretty good spot to wrap this episode.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for joining us, because I know it's not the easiest thing to come out here and be vulnerable and talk about personal experiences and open up the playbook for others to learn from your mistakes. But that's why we started this thing, right? That's the goal, to break down those barriers, help instill that confidence, and share a little bit of the blueprint for how to make whatever it is that you're trying to create a reality, right? So do you have any final words for before we wrap this thing up, for whether it's advice for people out there or anything? I want to give you the last word.
Well, yeah, I just want to appreciate y'all for having me. And one thing, I know a lot of ex-athletes are going to pay attention to this and watch this. And I just want to let y'all know that you are already great in something, so you could be great in something else. So make sure that you have the confidence in whatever you go into next to go and be great, because you will be.
Back in the game, it's evident. I step in the room, I'm an elephant. Run up a bag, I ran up a bag. I gotta go count on some presidents. I'm back out the dirt, the sediment. Back with a baddie, she elegant. I'm back from the dead, I'm back from the dead. Bitch, they call me the Revenant. Yeah, bitch, I'm 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 the Revenant. Yeah, ain't this shit evident? Bitch, I'm the Revenant. Yeah, back out the sediment. Bitch, I'm the Revenant. Oh shit, ain't that Lord Lost? That's that nigga from that rap shit. New air and my crown fitted, but I still ain't never on no cap shit. Been a captain of my own ship, back when I ain't have jack shit. Lighting verses, I burned this, got that Weezy F off of that piss. In the booth, I'm a mastiff, my skill set just massive. On my fourth quarter bronze shit, all my niggas hate when I be passive. Camera shy out in Cali, big life moment, couldn't even grasp it. All the stress took a toll, but when the credits roll, I'ma drop a classic. And my city gotta blast it, gotta hear it from the rooftop. Flavor Flav, Big Daddy Kane, I'ma walk around with